Layout B is up and running again. A few weeks ago, Layout B made the long trip from being in storage up north to our basement here with Layout A. Well, let's take a look. Several years ago, when this layout was moved up north, it was completely redone. And it was redone pretty well because it survived the trip very well. In fact, it went back together within only an hour or two. It had plexiglass in a couple areas, like over here. I've taken that off for now. We're not going to need it in quite the same way. I'll put smaller pieces in certain areas, like right where that bridge is. I also was able to put some skirting around it. I ran a little short though. All I have left is this end. A lot of people like this trestle here. This is the Montreal River Trestle and the hydroelectric dam on the Montreal River up in Canada, Ontario, Canada. This is the Algoma Central Railway that runs across, and this train is the Agua Canyon Tour train. One of the passenger cars developed a squeak somehow during the transport. I'll have to take a look at that. I just need some oil. If you're wondering why Layout B even exists at all, this is the original Great Lakes Eastern. This was going to be the whole layout. However, after a couple of years, I realized the curves are just a little too snug and a little too close together to handle some of the longer modern equipment. But I had many scenes built that I just didn't want to tear up. I was really proud of them. In fact, we're looking at one of them right now. This is actually the cul-de-sac where my folks lived, and at the time of building this layout, well, starting to build this layout, that's where I lived. All four of these houses here are scratch built. I actually started building the layout in the garage, and then I took it apart and moved it to the basement. That was the first test of the modular system. Then I moved it out of my parents' house into this house. And then I moved it from this house up north because we were planning on moving a few years back. The move got delayed from several things this year especially, so we brought the layout back here for now, and in a couple of years we'll move the entire thing, layout A, B, and whatever else. And speaking of scratch building houses, this is the house we're in right now, so I'm also building this one. So far I have the garage door and one of the front windows. I still need to add the front door and the porch and all the other windows in the house, and of course put the brick and siding on it. And after we do get everything settled and finally do move north and build our forever house, I will be building a model of it as well. That house is going to end up in this field back here. So that means that this scene is also scratch built. This is our place up north. This house is actually one of my early kit bashing attempts. It was a barn, and then I turned it into a house. The trailer here, mobile home. The green shed, the little white shed, all scratch built. This was my very first scratch building attempt back in 1996. Speaking of 1996, that's when the Great Lakes Eastern was initially started. However, I didn't realize that at the time. The Great Lakes Eastern wasn't even thought of. But it all started with this module, which at that time was a layout all of its own, in my bedroom. This here is the oldest part of the entire layout. Next year, July, I think, is going to be 25 years old. So speaking of the curves being a little too tight on layout B, back when I started building this layout, I thought a 22-23 inch radius would be sufficient. And at that time, for the most part, it was. But a lot of the newer stuff now requires a 24, 25 inch or even greater to run well. So I knew, again, I didn't really want to destroy what I had done, especially a couple of these scenes, which I'm very proud of, including the Montreal trestle here. All of that is scratch built. So the outer track here is about a 22-inch radius. The inner track, however, is like an 18-19. So that's very limited on what I can run. It's okay though for this layout. But the curves over on layout A, their radius averages about 30-31. In some places pinches down to maybe 27, but it can definitely handle everything. All the newer stuff runs just fine. Well, you saw the pasture train going around. I'm also running a locomotive and a track cleaning car around on track 2. Track 2 has always been dirtier for whatever reason. It just gets dirtier quicker. I have all the locomotives sitting here. These are all DC. That was another reason for keeping layout B and starting a new Great Lakes Eastern, which is layout A. Everything on here, there's a track cleaning car and a locomotive. Everything on here is DC powered. Layout A is DCC. I didn't really feel like converting all of these, so I decided to just keep this layout as it was. Eventually I'll connect the two with a bridge, unpowered, so I can just roll stuff across. Of course, as we know, a lot of new DCC locomotives can run under DC power, so some of those, I don't know if you can see them, may end up running over here as well. But these, of course, have to stay on this layout. They're DC only. I haven't quite wired everything back up underneath here. I am going to end up expanding this layout by 5 feet. That's it, 5 more feet. To make this rail yard longer and to actually include the Agua Canyon Provincial Park over on the other side there. Once I do that, I'll wire the switch yard up, this inner passing siding or industrial siding. And of course, I'd like to eventually finish putting the skirting around. I'll do a video about the skirting and how I do my roads and a bunch of other things in the near future here. The backdrop is just foam board sections, 88 cents a piece at Walmart. However, I may end up replacing them in the future with something more sturdy. But for now, they work fine. And I've been using them all the way around. They cut well, they take paint well. So for now, I like them. But with model railroading, as we know, everything is subject to change. That's really about it for this little update. Layout B is here. It's up and running. It's safe. It's all intact. There is actually a lot more work to do on it, although it does look quite finished. Layout A is probably going to be getting most of my attention for now. But I definitely want to add some things over here like lighting, a lot more trees, more figures, and of course, like I mentioned, expanding it 5 more feet. That's going to be about it for now. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon on the next one.